Welcome design students. In this video we're going to use the timbers that we textured and unwrapped last time and replace some of these other ones that are around the house. Before we get started though, I wanted to show you over here in my outliner that I have gone through and renamed all of my objects. I had quite a lot of objects in here and they were all called cube. So I renamed them to get some organization happening here. And I also created some groups. I created one for the wall timbers here. And this is one for the sill plates. This is one for the roof timbers. The sill plates are on the lower floor underneath the floor joists. They're visible from the outside. The stairs, the roof. Some of these are empty groups that don't have anything in them anymore. And some of them are just artifacts from doing things and moving things around and merging meshes and attaching things in Maya. So I want to show you how to clean some of this up. So the first thing we need to do is go to Edit, Delete All by Type History, and that will sometimes get rid of some of them, and it did. But then I've got this one here, and if you notice, there's really nothing in there except for a transform. And if I zoom out, you'll be able to see it right here, and if I move it, you can see there's nothing there. So I feel pretty safe that I can delete it. Now, if I delete it, and some component of my house disappears, then I'll know I have a problem. And here's another one that's stuck out here in the middle of nowhere. And here's one. Let's see what that is. That also doesn't appear to be anything, so I'm going to delete that as well. And as you can see, that did quite a lot to clean up my scene and organize things. Another thing I've done is I have turned on my edge display here. You can see there's blue edges. The blue color highlights all the edges on the polygons, and you do that right here. That makes it a little easier to see what I'm doing, so I'm going to leave that on as well. And I'm going to turn off my resolution gate and do a quick render in the Arnold render view so you can see what those timbers look like rendered. And you can see that they look quite good. So let's get started with this process. I'm going to select my wall timbers group and hide everything else, and this is one of the reasons I grouped them. And I want to show you one more thing about your display settings before we get started. Notice how my border edges here are highlighted. They're bigger than the other edges around the objects, and that helps me see that I have an empty space there. And this is important because, you know, I'm trying to delete polygons that I don't need, and I need to know if there's one there or not. And that highlighted border edge just makes it easier to see. So if you want to turn that feature on, you come up to Display, Polygons, Custom Polygon Display, and bring up the options. And then you check this box right here, and if I uncheck it and apply, you can see that that goes away. And then you hit the width of the border that you want here. If I make this 10 and click apply, you'll see that it gets much thicker. So that's how you turn that on. So I'm going to start by making copies of these two. I'm going to hold down Shift after I select them and move them over here. Then I'm going to rotate them and make sure Angle Snaps is on right here. And I'm going to rotate them so they're facing the right direction. I'm going to replace these two. And it doesn't matter that they rotated individually. It's okay. Now I want you to notice that when I try to click this one, it selects that whole wall. That's because I combined these into one mesh. So I'm going to click it and go to Mesh Separate, or I can switch to face mode and double click that one component and simply delete it. Do the same here. Actually, I'm going to leave that one for now. So move this over here a little bit. you switch to face mode and double click, you can access a component of a merged mesh. And that's how you do it. Now, these are fine next to each other because they're also on this front wall, and we'll never notice the difference when we walk around the side of the house that they are the same. So I'll probably take these two now, hold down Shift, make copies, rotate them so they face the correct direction. And move them into place. Pushing F on your keyboard is a very useful thing to do. It helps your rotation when you're trying to move things around. I always forget to do it. Then I'll just continue around replacing all of these. I'll replace the corner ones. One thing you cannot do with these is use them to replace any timber that is bigger than they are, because if you resize them, you will stretch the texture. You know, maybe you can do that a little bit, but you can't. If you do it too much, you'll stretch the texture way too much, and you'll have to just remap it. So you don't want to resize them too much. Like I couldn't use them to replace these horizontal ones. That would just not work. So I'm going to finish replacing the corners, and I'll just pause the video and I'll come back and show you what the result is. So here you go. I have them all replaced, and they look perfectly fine. I'm going to unhide everything else. So we'll just follow the same process for these. I would probably texture these 3 and then just copy them to the other side, because you're never going to really notice that the 2 sides are the same. And I would texture these 2 and copy them to the back. For these, down here at the bottom, these floor joists, I would probably texture 3, 4 of them and then just mix them up so that no 2 are exactly the same that are next to each other. And I would do the same on this shed thing. But in the next video, I'm going to show you how to texture the roof. And I'll see you then.